I guess I'm so in. Yeah.
Ciao, buongiorno ragazzi. Thank you for tuning into the Inter Worldwide podcast coming at you for our 37th, I believe, edition. Sunny day here in Sydney, Australia. Thank you to my guests, Bruno and Alessandro. Bruno, how you doing, bro?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me. Ale, how is it all the way in Maui at the moment?
At the moment, Maui is awesome. It's sunny and the weather is just perfect. Not like back in San Francisco where it's raining a lot at the moment.
Well, we've got a lot to talk about today, and sorry, Alessandro, but we'll get back to him right in a second because we've got a lot to get through. So we're just going to jump right into it. The Barcelona hangover, it still hasn't completely worn off. I spoke a little bit about it in my post-match video, so I'm going to throw it over to the guests first. Alessandro, how did you spend Barcelona, and what was your initial reaction, and have you calmed down a little bit now, bro?
Yeah, I mean, I was disappointed as most of the fans, I can say. And before the match, I didn't really have so many hopes. As I said before, I wasn't really thinking of the Champions League as one of our main goals. But, when you get the last game and you're still there to go through the group stage, you start hope a little bit. And then I have to say, honestly, I think we were really, really, really unlucky not to win this game because we created a lot and we were, in my opinion, we were in control of the game. And the first time they try, they score, and that's really hard to recover. And then we were able to draw, and again we were like, I think we scored the 3 times, and at least 2 of the 3 times the VAR was correct to disallow the game. I don't know about the last chance, and then you get another goal out of nowhere, and that's it. So I think the players gave them all, and it was just I don't know, just a little bit of luck missing and lack of concentration at the end. Some players were more disappointing than others, but at least for like a good hour or 70 minutes, I saw a good team, and again, just a little bit more luck or concentration, and we will have a very different conversation at the moment. What do you think, Bruno?
Look, I think you said it there. Our goal wasn't Champions League this season, but at the same time, no one doesn't want to be in Champions League. I just feel Inter had a great chance to improve their financial position at the moment. And they had a great chance to just, put their foot in the door and bring back the name that Inter once held in Europe. And it's unfortunate because it's a great marketing tool when it does come to transfers and all of that throughout the year. But they've got even their B team is just really good. Barcelona, their team is just amazing, and that Fati, Barcelona don't have a $200 million release clause on him for no reason, and we all saw what he's capable of, and he was on the pitch for I think about 5 minutes before he scored his goal. So it's just it is disappointing. It's frustrating. It's disappointing. I said that all along. I don't want to be in Europa, but I am now looking at the positives of being in Europa. If we do win the Europa League, we will be in pot 1. If we do win the Scudetto, we will also be in pot 1. And I think that's something Inter really need to work on, their European coefficient, simply because we'll end up getting into groups like this. And that's not what we're looking to do with our club. we really need to improve our European coefficient so we can be the better team in the group, and we can have some of the minnows in there. Somehow Atalanta's coefficient worked in their favour. So anything's possible, but we got to look forward now. We got to move past what has happened and look on. We've got Fiorentina coming up. So Anthony, our chances, what do you think?
Thanks, brother. Fiorentina's going to be tough, but I don't think too tough. I think that they'll come out in the first 15, 20 minutes with, some good fresh pairs of legs, but we're going to go into it with looking to really get a monkey off our shoulder again after this Barcelona setback. Conte is going to rile this team up, and he's basically going to say that if we are going to save this season, like not save this season, but you know what I mean? He's going to say that, it's do or die. Like every single game was do or die. Lecce 4-0 was do or die. The game after at Cagliari was do or die. Every game with Conte is the same. So I expect the team to come out really, really firing against Fiorentina, a team that is most likely going to sack coach Montella pretty soon. He's been given a 2-week deadline. And in that period of time, he plays Inter, and I think Atalanta, or maybe Inter and Napoli, I don't know. He's not going to survive, basically. Montella's on his last leg. So we might see something similar that we saw with Napoli's Ancelotti, in a sense that if they don't really have something to play for their manager, then they know all hope was lost. They already surrendered the title challenge, and the only reason Napoli were playing well in Champions League is because they still thought they could progress to a next round and get a new manager in. And now they have. Montella's on his last legs at Fiorentina. I don't expect his players to put in a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 performance. Chiesa's been sloppy. Ribéry's still out. I'm actually not too sure if Ribéry's out. I'll go back to Bruno for that. But I'm not 100% sure. But even if he isn't, I don't think Fiorentina are going to come at us all guns blazing. In terms of our team news, going into this game, I fully expect Lukaku and Lautaro to keep linking up well and to grab maybe a goal each. Midfield, Brozovic, Vecino, and it's probably going to be Borja Valero again. Still no news on the return of Stefano Sensi. We're thinking that he's going to be out until January and just not risked. Bruno will talk more about that as well. And that's pretty much it. The back three, if he's fit, I would start Godin again. I actually think he's picked up a little bit of form. Skriniar and De Vrij, obviously, as well. Alessandro, we'll go over to you before we go back to Bruno. How do you think we're going to go against Fiorentina this weekend, man?
I mean, you pretty much said everything. And Ribéry is out and needs to go take a surgery, and it's going to be out for at least 2 or 3 months. So it's not going to be at the game. Boateng probably is going to be at the game. And with the goalkeeper, Dragowski is going to be probably one of the players to watch. I remember last season, Dragowski was playing for Empoli. And I think everybody will remember the last game where we were playing for our Champions League chance. And he was unbelievable. As a goalkeeper, he saved so many chances for us. So said that, as you said, I think Comiso gave 2 weeks to Montella, but I wonder if he's gonna last 2 weeks. Probably this is just a trap that he set up, and the game against us. I don't know. Maybe it's gonna be the last one. We'll see. If we can win, usually after a defeat in Champions League, Conte's team tend to win in Serie A, and I hope they will. And the only thing I want to say, going back, a lot of people are saying we play against the Barcelona B, but if you think of the team we played, we also didn't have the full team. It was kind of Inter B too, because our midfielders were not the what we're supposed to have. So, not try to justify anything, but it's a little bit unfair to say, oh yeah, but you were playing against Barcelona B. Sure, if we look on paper, of course they're big names, but on paper we should have Sensi, we should have Barella, we should have Asamo on the left and on Biragi, and I mean it should be a different team, and yeah. So I just wanted to add that. Then back to Bruno, what you think of the Fiorentina game?
Yeah, look, I think what you said about Commisso giving Montella 2 games, I just think that's a statement to say, look, you're going to finish the year with Fiorentina, but guess what? Come January, you're not going to be at the club anymore. Inter will show Grinta against Fiorentina. They're going to go hard. They're not going to take their foot off the pedal. They still realize that they are still top of the table, and that is motivation on its own. Yes, they just got knocked out of Europe, but at the same time, they're top of the table. And if I know Conte, if I know Lukaku, Martinez, they're not going to want to stop there. Yes, you're right. In the injury with Ribéry, he is required to have ankle surgery, so he will be out until at least February. In Boateng, it's touch and go. They're giving him until game day to prove his match fitness, which we saw at Sassuolo. He was an issue for us. Our team is going to look very unchanged, and overall, I just think Fiorentina are not the team they used to be, and especially with the lacking of Ribéry, and Chiesa's just missing. He's missing at the moment. He's just disappearing from the spotlight. So it's gonna be interesting to see how we approach this game, how Conte's going to approach this game, but I can't see the ragazzi not putting their feet on the throat of Fiorentina, not ending Montella's career at Fiorentina.
Whole career.
Yeah, look, his coach at Fiorentina, his career as a Fiorentina manager. In back to Europa League. Inter have this amazing chance now to progress to the Europa League. Now, I would like to see, and I'm moving on without your approval here, Anthony. I'm taking the reins on this one, because the Europa League is subpar to Champions League, and everyone knows that. But I find this to be a great opportunity. Now, if we take a look at Lazio in their group stage of the Europa League, I don't think they fielded a starting 11 that featured more than 3 players from their Serie A starting 11. Now, everyone's criticising Lazio, saying, oh, look, he's bombed out of the Europa League and he's beat Juventus, But I can't justify that, because if you look at the squads they fielded in the Europa League, they're not going to be as great as what they have in the Serie A. And I'd like Conte to take a great look at that. I'd love to see Conte give Esposito a starting chance. Aguame, you have Baraghi playing the Europa League. You have Ranocchia in the Europa League. Bernie playing as goalkeeper in the Europa League. I find it as a great opportunity to showcase our players who don't get much game time at all. I find that as a great opportunity to showcase our players to the rest of Europe, to say, hey guys, look, these players are for sale, and this is how good they can play. 1, 2, give them game time so they can prove their position in our starting 11. They can prove their position with Conte in the squad. And I feel, especially with our possible teams we can face, it doesn't look too bad, because Inter do fall into the first pot, not the second pot. So they get to play a second place team. So that is the advantage. A lot of these second place teams, you can't say their name, you can't pronounce their name, and they're from countries which you don't even hear about their competitive league. So I'd love to see Conte put on a showcase of the youth, put on a showcase of players who aren't getting game time. I feel like Ranocchia is pretty hard done by this season because he started the season very well with Inter and then just didn't get any game time after that. Aguami came across to Inter and we have not seen him play once. But Agi, we've all seen he needs minutes. He needs minutes where there's no pressure. And I just feel the Europa League would love to see him. I'd love to see Valero, Sensi in that Europa League. Give him Brozovic that well-earned rest because unlike Champions League where it's midweek, Europa League's at the back end of the week. So they'll end up playing 2 games within 4 days. And they'll do that week in, week out. And it's just squad management will be critical. And by that time, we should have our full team back. So I'd love to see the first couple of games, second string team come into the mix. And I know we're going to be talking about transfers shortly. But, guys, I'll start with you, Anthony. What do you think about that approach? The whole Lazio approach. Now they're knocked out. They're actually focusing solely on the Serie A. So is that something you'd like to see happening?
See, the Europa League isn't something that you really take serious up until the quarterfinals, bare minimum. Like last year, we beat, I actually forget, I can't remember the name of the team now in the round of 32, but then we couldn't get past Eintracht Frankfurt in the round of 16. So it's not a competition where you'd see your full team forward in the round of 32. And, some of the opponents that we can come up against are tricky, but, not teams that you'd say a Conte-led Inter can't really do over comfortably. So at the end of the day, it really depends who you come up against is who you're going to field on the pitch on the day. So hypothetically, you get a team that isn't very good. Maybe you leave Lukaku or Lautaro at home and you give Esposito 90 minutes plus extra time. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for me with the Europa League in terms of how I see the competition and how I would approach it. I would be putting the most basic team forward that you can. Valero gets minutes. Ranocchia will get his minutes in that competition as well. Bastoni will get more minutes. We can play Biraghi to death in the round of 32 if we need to. But you never know. We could come up against a team that might pose something a little bit more tricky, maybe in a country that's a little bit more hostile. They're known for their fans being quite hostile as well, and because of that you have to take a strong team, a team with experience, a team with backbone. So there's that factor as well. I really do think we can go far in the competition though if we do set our mind to it. I just really don't want it to affect the league, and we've seen it affect the league for other teams in other competitions before. Teams who win this competition a lot of the time are teams who come 5th in their league, 6th in their league, because they've chosen to focus on this towards the back end of the season. That can't happen to us. I mean, we're supposed to keep up a 38 match day season this season to complete with Juventus. So as I said, at least 3 times in the last 2 minutes, it really does come down to your opponent and who you get and how you approach it. And then obviously the further you go in the competition, the more likely you are to meet the Champions League dropouts. Sorry, they didn't even make the Champions League, but Arsenal will probably be one of the tougher teams. Manchester United will be one of the tougher teams on the list. I think Sporting Lisbon is on the list as well. So yeah, then that's when you start bringing your full team forward. And so when you do submit that squad list, that when Conte does resubmit that squad list for Europa League, he is still going to have to put the Lautaros and the Lukakus and the Barellas and the Sensis in the squad list, because God forbid we do get to the semi-finals, you might as well go full throttle for it after that. That's all from me. Alessandro, how about you? Your thoughts going into the Europa League? We wish we weren't in there, but, it's a reality, man. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, since the beginning of the competition was, let's say, crazy enough to watch the highlights of the Europa League games. And what I noticed is like 70-80% of the goals come from free kicks or corner kicks, no matter what team it is. And I think we are pretty good in that, meaning we can defend in free kick and corner kick. I can't remember any of our games this season coming from corner kicks, for example. So I think at least a couple of turns we can go through no matter who we play and which player we use. of course, we can rotate the defense, and as you guys said, Ranocchia and Bastoni can have more time. The problem that we have are in the midfield and in attack because okay, we have Politano and we have Esposito, but those are really different players from Lautaro and Lukaku. So at least one of the two, I think, will play. And same in the midfield. If we keep having these injuries, Gagliardini, Barella, and Sensi, I mean, we have, okay, we can bring Agumet, but then we still have to play Toro Cavallero, Vecino, or Brozovic. So we don't have so many options, and that's what brings us to the transfer windows. I think just a few weeks ago, our main focus was the midfield, and now with the injury of Asamoah and Biraghi not playing so well, I think that's our main focus. And Bruno, I think you have some name for us about the transfer windows, right? Bruno?
Yes, I do. Yes. Sorry. I could not find my screen there. But yes, I do. But before we go into that, I do have a list of Inter's possible opponents in the first draw of the Europa League. So we don't have a chance to face any Premier League teams. So I feel like they're probably the biggest competition we'll face in this competition so far. But I'll go through them quickly, just so we've got a quick list of who we can face. We've got Belgium club outfit Club Bruges, who are pretty tough. Greek team Olympiacos, Shakhtar Donetsk, and German teams Bayer Leverkusen, who have moved down from the Champions League as well, and Frankfurt, who surprisingly knocked us out last year. We got AFOL, Romanian club Cluj, Spanish club Getafe, Mourinho's former club Sporting Lisbon. Was it Sporting Lisbon he won it with? No, it wasn't. Never mind.
Porto. He won it with Porto, but I think he
Yeah.
was at Sporting Lisbon's academy at one point.
Yeah. Denmark club Copenhagen, Wolfsburg from Germany, Ludogorets, AZ Alkmaar from the Netherlands, Braga from Portugal, as well as Rangers from the Scottish League. So, look, there are a couple of tricky teams we could get there, and knowing Inter would probably draw by Leverkusen or Frankfurt again straight off the bat. But there are a couple of tricky teams. But in saying that, this time round, we have a better chance of getting I wouldn't call them a minnow team, but a lesser known team, a less challenging team per se. But yes, Ale, thank you for that beautiful segue. Transfer window is very fast approaching, and with the final 2 match days left in the Serie A, Conte's got a lot of decisions to be made, and firstly, it is with the Inter team themselves. Who are we going to let go of? Is there anyone in the team that they're going to afford to put on the market this transfer window? So starting with the club, I feel Fiorentina is currently interested in Matteo Politano, from who Inter only purchased following his loan spell from Sassuolo this year. They're interested in him. I don't know if it's a good move to get rid of him. He's a great player to bring on. He isn't the type of player like Biraghi, where you take off one player, or Valero, where you take off one player and you bring on an underrated player, a player who isn't as good as the others. I think he's just as good. We have not seen much of him this season. There is a lot of talk around Gabigol and his final destination to be made at some point throughout the summer transfer window in Australia, winter transfer window in the rest of the world, basically. So they're looking to formalise his contract with Flamingo for a cut price of around 20 million. But if anyone else wants him, they will have to pay 30 million. PSG has confirmed that they would like to make Icardi one of their players in the January window, and this is now being backed up from their progression in the Champions League. So there is some good money coming in there. Perisic is looking more and more each and every week to solidify his position in the Bayern Munich squad. We saw most recently in their 2-1 defeat in their domestic league, he was the only player to score a goal. And I watched the highlights. He was all over the pitch. He was the old Perisic who was at Inter 2 seasons ago, and he looked good. In their most recent Champions League game, he actually started as striker. So I don't know what they're doing with him there, but it seems to be working. He seems to be happy. I'd love to see them formalise that deal. And Nainggolan Cagliari will not let him go. So rather than give Inter money, they are going to be reducing the price that Inter has to pay for Barella when they formalise his contract in the July period next year. So that's Inter news coming out of the club and players involving Inter players directly. There are still those rumours about El Toro Martinez. They're going to Barcelona. I think Marotta's really eager to get that $200 million release clause instated. Barcelona have already said if that's the case, we don't want him, which is a good sign. And there are tricklings of rumours of Sensi still to go to Barcelona. But with his injury-prone body, he won't pass the physical in the January transfer window. So Inter need to do their best to keep him signed. Now, Inter bringing in players. It's becoming more and more apparent that Olivier Giroud will be coming the French World Cup winner. The Chelsea forward isn't happy with the game time he's getting at Chelsea and isn't happy with what the coaches have to say about him there. They've got the likes of Tammy Abraham, who is absolutely on fire in the domestic league, as well as Pulisic from the US of A. From your hometown there in San Fran, I think he is actually Ale. But he's not happy. He would love to play under Conte again. He previously played when Conte managed the Chelsea outfit. And still in England, still in Chelsea, they are looking to bring midfielder Marcos Alonso across. But I do know that Anthony does have something to say about Giroud. I'm going to stay off that topic. Yeah. Well, you can jump in and interrupt me. Go for it.
Yeah, well, we ran a poll on our Facebook page earlier today, and thank you for everyone who voted. It was actually really good. It got a great response, over 300 in the first hour. But what was really interesting is how it never really fluctuated between a high. It was always tight. So far we've got 48% of the voters voting with yes, and 52% of the voters saying that they don't want Olivier Giroud, and it's been real neck and neck from the start. So I think it's one that really separates the fans. So that's why I think it's important for all of us to say our opinions. And I personally would bring in Olivier Giroud to Inter. I think we can get him on a cheap price. He's already worked under Conte, and he could form a relationship with former Arsenal man Alexis Sanchez on the bench, because these are two players who have played together on the pitch before. We've already seen how good Conte works with a two-man striker system up front, and how quickly he could acclimatize Lukaku and Lautaro. There's no reason why Sanchez and Giroud wouldn't be the best man-for-man replacement. And that just goes into what we're talking about for the Europa League. Can you imagine being able to start a fit Alexis Sanchez and Giroud? I mean, those are two really pretty good man-for-man subs for Lukaku and Lautaro for the round of 32 in the Europa League. But it was rude of me to interrupt. Back to Bruno for his opinion on whether or not Actually, no. Alessandro, would you bring Giroud in or not? You first.
Well, we didn't see Giroud play for a long time, so I wonder. I mean, right now, playing with Sanchez and Giroud, it will be just a mystery. It's like Sanchez was injured most of the time. Giroud didn't play, so I wonder what we can get from them. On paper, yes, sure, it's a great replacement, but is it actually gonna be the kind of players they were just a month ago? So if he's a loan, why not? If we have to spend some money for Giro, I don't know, man. I would love to see some other play. Honestly, not the biggest fan, and but on the other side, Conte is a big fan of Giroud, and he played under Conte before, and I'm sure he can bring a lot from this guy. So again, if we had to do a big investment on these players, I don't know. Bruno, anything to add?
Look, I feel with Giroud, Conte sees stuff in players that others don't see. Like, you got to ask, what did he see in Sensi before he brought him to the San Siro? Sanchez, right? And my analogy with Conte is, you look at Barella, you look at Sanchez. Conte did not start them until Conte was impressed with how they performed for him on the training pitch. And we just saw how effective of a method that was when Sanchez did get his run with Inter in that quick 2-game spell. He had a beautiful goal against Udinese, if I stand corrected, as well as an arse assist, deflection off the arse, but he also got a red card. Then you look at Barella. It took him a couple more games to get Barella into his mode. And once he did, he was full Forza Conte from that point. But you look at, so I don't fear what Conte will do with Giroud. I just fear the age. But as well as that, I feel like, yes, Esposito's a great player to have on our bench, but he's not the only player we can turn to. And I would love to see there being a nice replacement as well as Sanchez, because we've seen it with Brozovic, and I don't want to see it with Lukaku or Martinez just burning out, because at the end of the day, their schedules are getting more and more chaotic. We've seen what we need. We've seen what we need for Champions League. But yeah, that's just what I think we need to do up front. Midfield, where we've had most of our problems this season. I did touch on Marcos Alonso earlier. Inter are still very eager on Altaro Vidal, and it would just be nice to see the Chilean connection between Vidal and Sanchez. And we saw how he played against Inter in the Champions League. And I do believe that Marotta went straight into the Barcelona dressing room following their result to start a conversation with him about his chances of coming to Inter. So we do need someone in the midfield. I can't see us getting Brescia's Tonali. I can't see us getting Lazio's Milinkovic-Savic at this point in the season. Brescia just want way too much for Tonali. Lazio would be silly to sell mid-season, but I just feel that it's something that needs to happen. It is our midfield. We did have a question last week, other than SMS, who would you have in the midfield? But it had to be a Serie A player. I'm throwing it to you guys. I'll start with you, Ale. Other than, well, any player that Inter has been linked to in regards to the midfield, who would you like to see come across?
From Serie A?
No. Any player.
Any player in the midfield. I will go with the youngest from Parma, Kulusevski. It reminds me of a young Milinkovic-Savic. So if I have to invest, this winter will be on that player, honestly. And is young, first of all. Is just at the right time. We can get it with the right price probably, and we need a player in that position with those characteristics. So we go all in on that player. What about you, Anthony?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. If it's going to come down to one of Kulusevski and Rodrigo de Paul, I'd probably go with Kulusevski. He's a bit younger, a little bit more dynamic, can find the goal well. But, de Paul can as well. He played as a winger for majority of his time at Udinese. He's just been transitioned into the midfield this season, and which is another reason why I prefer Kulusevski. I think he's a more experienced midfielder despite him being younger. So yeah, I would say Kulusevski to answer your question as well, Bruno. If we're talking about players that we're properly linked to day to day in the media, I would say Kulusevski. What about you, Bruno, bro? To answer your own question.
Yeah, well, to answer my own question, I think De Paul is 90% done. I can't see him not becoming an Inter player in the January transfer window. But instead, I'd love to see Vidal. And you ask me why? Well, I'll ask myself why. I'd love to see Vidal there because he's played with teams who have had enormous amounts of pressure on them. So he's played with Juventus, he's played with Barcelona, and especially with the Barcelona side, the Scudetto in Barcelona, in Spain, is a lot more intense than it has been in the Serie A as of late. And every game mounts pressure. And we saw Barcelona dropping a lot of points at the start of the season to little teams, but it's the pressure, it's the experience within the Champions League, which Juventus players don't really have these days. They get knocked out of the knockout stages pretty quickly, whereas Barcelona's hung around a fair bit. So, like my opinion on Godin, where Godin brought experience, I feel like Vidal will bring that experience. But not just that, I feel like he is the physical type of midfielder, and I just think we need someone who's not scared to get their legs tangled with another player to get that ball. And I just feel that that's the case. Before I hand it back to you, Anthony, guys, Monday we have the Europa League draw. So we'll find out who we're facing in February. So everyone keep your eyes peeled for that because we will be covering that result on, I think it's Tuesday, Australian time, Monday, everywhere else in the world. So we will give you an update on who Inter will be drawing in the Europa League. But we won't be seeing Inter take the stage in the Europa League until February. Before then, we have Napoli, Atalanta, and Cagliari in the Coppa Italia. So we do have a couple more fixtures in January before we actually move into that competition. Anyway, Anthony, I know this is where you take control, so I'll hand it back to you, mate.
Nah, too good, too easy. Thank you, man. Nah, that's pretty much all we're going to have time for today. I'm very excited for that Europa League draw. Just having a look at those opponents again, I actually think they're all tough teams, to be honest. There's not a team there that's not going to be fighting hell for leather for getting a spot. As we've said before on this podcast, these are the tournaments where some teams prioritize it over the league. Some of these teams will be so far down in the league or will just be mid-table teams. So I expect a lot of these teams to really show up to play us. So it's not going to be easy. And, over 2 legs, anything can really happen. That's all we're going to have time for, though, today. So I want to thank my guests who have been awesome. Alessandro, thank you very much for coming on, man.
Thank you, but everybody stay focused on the Fiorentina game. One step at a time, okay, guys? Thank you.
Absolutely. One step at a time. So let's hope for a really, really good result against Fiorentina. Bruno, thanks for taking the reins a bit today, my man.
Thank you for having me, Forza Inter, and yeah, like Ale said, focus on what's ahead. Don't focus on what could have been. Focus on what we can control, and I can't say there've been issues against Fiorentina, guys. Thanks again for having us.
Bene. All right, from all of us from Inter Worldwide, ciao ragazzi, Forza Inter.